3, 2, 1.
Hi everyone, we'll be waiting 2 to 3 minutes before starting the webinar to accommodate for the rest of the attendees who are in the middle of connecting. Welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us and thanks for being part of our community. My name is Valan Kolika and I'll be your host for today. A few reminders before we start. If you have issues viewing the stream at any time during the presentation and are using the web browser version of Teams, please refresh your browser. If you're using the desktop app of Teams, please exit and rejoin. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and it will be shared publicly. We will post the recordings on our community at aka.ms/security-webinars. Closed captions in several languages are available during the live broadcast. You can enable them by clicking on the CC button located at the lower right corner of your screen. Feel free to ask questions at any time by typing them in the live event Q&A window by clicking on the Ask Question button. Be aware that any questions you post will be publicly visible. However, if you prefer, you can post question anonymously by checking the box right below where you enter it. Now, we often get many questions on these webinars, and we will do our best to respond to all of them in real time. In the event, if the answer was not provided, or if you may have additional questions post this event, please don't hesitate to raise them on our Azure Security Center forum at aka.ms/ASC community. If you're listening to this after the fact as a recording, that's also a great place to ask a question. We love to hear your feedback on how we can improve these webinars. You can do so at aka.ms/security webinar feedback. I would also like to invite you to join our public community by visiting aka.ms/security-community. That's the best way to ensure you don't miss any future webinars or major announcements. On our community, you can speak directly to our engineering teams that create our security products. You'll be able to influence our product designs and get early access to changes by doing things like participating in private previews, which you can join at aka.ms/security-prp. You can request features, give feedback, review our product roadmaps, register for events, or join webinars like this. We believe that the best way to improve our products is by removing any barriers between you and the people that create them. So we hope you'll join us. In today's session, Safina Begum Lepakshi and Tiander Turpin will guide us through the Azure Security Center alert investigation using Azure Sentinel. Safina is a senior program manager with our Azure Security Center team, whereas Tiander is also a senior program manager with our Azure Sentinel team. And without further ado, I'll turn it over to them. Safina, Tiander, the floor is yours.
Thanks for all the introduction, Valon.
I'm hoping you welcome.
Can. Cool. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's great to be here in this beautiful morning. I'm here to talk to you about Azure Security Center alerts, and my colleague Tiander will walk you through how to triage the alerts further in Azure Sentinel. And quickly, this is going to be the agenda for today. I will walk you through some challenges that we notice at the customers and talk about how Azure Security Center can help overcome these challenges. And we will discuss about how Azure Security Center identifies alerts, and also I'll walk you through workflow automation and show you how easy it is to resolve an alert. Finally, I'll hand over to my colleague Tiander, who will talk about triaging these alerts in Azure Sentinel. So let's kick it off. The cloud kill chain model. So it's important to speak about the challenges that we often notice at the customers. So talking about the cloud cyberkill chain, we often notice some of the types of attacks and compromises and attack vectors that we see across the board are usually based on the exposure phase, right? And so either an infected admin through malware or phishing attacks, and also vulnerabilities in the products that are developed in the cloud. So for instance, say, for example, you're deploying an application that is vulnerable to SQL injection attacks, or those types of problems that we often see at the customers. Also, once the initial compromise has been established, there's usually some sort of access and persistence trying to be executed. And then during the lateral movement state, the attackers actually have discovered what resources they have access to and what the scope of that access is, and successful attackers on instances give attackers access to the database and other sensitive information as well. And also, last but not least, I want to emphasize on the data exfiltration or misuse, which is very important topic to discuss, because it's not always about attackers trying to exfiltrate data or destroy your information. It's also about misuse. And I can give you an example that I've seen in the past. One of the most prevalent and new sort of attacks in the cloud is the credential storage, the key credential exposure. I'm sure some of you might have heard about it. Say, for example, developers or administrators checking in the code in platforms like GitHub or any of those that includes storage account keys in their code, and attackers are utilizing those attack vectors to try and compromise those storage accounts, meaning they will use those storage accounts in putting either malware or other compromised endpoints or entities through that. And it's obviously, it will be widely widely spread, into the organization. So how can we identify these attacks in timely manner and act upon it? And that's where Azure Security Center helps you with. So Azure Security Center allows you to validate basically two things. There are two value propositions, CSPM and CWPP. CSPM is your cloud security posture management, and CWPP is cloud workload platform protection. Though we are talking about CWPP in today's session, I want to quickly give you an overview of what CSPM is. It helps you prevent, if you have any misconfigurations that you have in your environment, then Azure Security Center will highlight those misconfigurations in terms of recommendations in order to help you strengthen your security posture for your cloud environments, be it resources that are hosted in IaaS or PaaS workloads, or even on-premise workloads that you might have connected to the Azure Security Center. So CSPM, if I have to describe in one line, it is more of a proactive work. And next we have is CWPP. This will protect against threats for servers, whether they are running on Azure, on-prem, or in different clouds, like Amazon, Google. In addition to the, cloud-native workloads as well, it helps. Like if you have web apps, Kubernetes, Key Vault, some of them we are going to discuss it in today's session. So, like I said, we'll concentrate more on CWPP part of it for today. Talking about Azure Security Center, it gives you complete visibility and control over your security of the hybrid cloud workloads. And like I said, it's not just IaaS workloads, but also PaaS workloads, and not just cloud workloads, but on-premise as well. And we recently released multi-cloud support as well that I'm sure most of you might have heard about it. So be it AWS or GCP workloads, you can connect to the Azure Security Center and take the benefit out of it. Now, with this slide, I want to explain how Azure Security Center detects the threats. So the threat detection capability of a Security Center is on advanced analytics. So you have threat intelligence, you have anomaly detection, and you have behavioral analytics. All these three are working together in order to detect the threats. So Security Center uses machine learning technologies in order to evaluate all the relevant events across your entire cloud fabric. So by using this approach, it is able to detect threats that would be impossible to identify using manual approaches, and which makes a very easy job for a security analytics. So I can give you a quick example. So let's say you have a production server, you're monitoring that server. Let's say the server usually sends a bunch of SMTP traffic, but suddenly it tries to send a lot of SMTP traffic, which is above normal for that server. And the security analytics analyst is not aware of it, but Security Center identifies the deviation of normal behavior for that particular machine, and it queries the threat intelligence database to confirm if it is legitimate or not. And then Security Center will work best in order to avoid the false positive alerts. And then it tries to leverage different data sources in order to increase the level of certainty. And then eventually, once it finds out that the alert is true positive, then the alert will kick into your Security Center dashboard, and it will trigger an alert. Behavior analytics here looks for the known patterns of malicious behaviors. And I'll talk about Fusion in a while. I'm focusing on that as well. So here is an example of built-in analytics and machine learning. So an attacker is trying to, attacker passes the cyberkill chain, and it got access at this point to the VM, and he begins to send spam emails. Then Security Center, using machine learning, it tries to detect the spike in the SMTP traffic, and here is an example of the traffic that is correlated with Office 365 spam database database to determine if the traffic is likely legitimate or not. And once it confirms that, it will show you an alert in a very clear description format like this, where you will see the description with the detection time and the severity, how severe it is, and the compromised hosts and so on. I wanted to talk about one other example about fileless attacks. So Azure Defender has capability to detect fileless attacks on Windows machines. Earlier this year, we announced fileless attack detection for Linux too, which was in preview for a couple of months. We recently, as fresh as this week, made it generally available for all the Azure VMs and non-Azure VMs that you might have enrolled in Azure Defender. So what is fileless detection? Fileless detection actually periodically scans your machines and extracts insights directly from the memory of the processes. In the back end, it uses memory forensic techniques to cover a wide range of fileless attack behaviors. It could be a shell code or injected modules. It does the same for the Linux as well. So very beneficial. It gives you all information about what the severity level is and active or not, and when was it reported, and more description and the effective resource. Okay, moving on. Azure Defender for servers adds threat detection and advanced defenses for your Windows as well as Linux machine. So these are some of the benefits that I thought was important to highlight in this session of Azure Defender for servers. Just-in-time VM access, if you have used it. Just-in-time is one of the most useful and very, very well received feedback from the customers that we've got. So threat actors actively hunt accessible machines with the open ports, open management ports, right? Be it RDP or SSH. All of your virtual machines are or potential targets for an attack. So say, for example, when a VM is successfully compromised, it's used as an entry point in order to attack further resources within your environment. So when you enable Azure Defender for servers, you can use just-in-time VM access in order to lock down the inbound traffic for your VMs. That will eventually reduce the exposure to attackers, while providing, it also provides easy access to connect to the VMs when needed for the users. And we also have adaptive network hardening, another amazing feature that will help you filter the traffic to and from resources, and it will improve your network security posture. And I wanted to talk about how to protect against malware. One of the amazing features that we have in Defender is Azure adaptive application controls. This is an application allow list. I'm sure you agree that it's not an easy, it's not a new concept, but also one of the biggest challenges of dealing with application allow list is how to maintain that list, right? So the traditional approach of using app locker in Windows is definitely a good solution, but still has an overhead of keeping up with the applications and making the initial baseline work properly for our needs. So adaptive application controls helps your machines to harden your VMs against malware by making it easier for you to control which applications can run on your Azure VMs and not. Okay, and I wanted to talk about Azure Defender ATP EDR as well. This includes Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. Together, they provide comprehensive endpoint detection and response EDR capabilities. So when Defender for Endpoint detects a threat, it triggers the alert in Security Center, and it will be shown with a clear description and so on. I wanted to highlight the AKS support in Azure Defender as well. I'm sure you agree Kubernetes has become a new standard for deploying managed software in the cloud, right? So Azure Defender works together with AKS, and which is the Microsoft Managed Container Orchestration Service for deploying and developing and managing containerized applications. It constantly monitors the configuration of your AKS clusters, and it generates security recommendations, which is aligned with the industry standards. And in the back end, if you think of it, it uses intelligent analytics for threat detections. And it provides threat protection at different levels, at host level as well as AKS cluster levels, and provides you recommendations if there is a deviation or misconfigurations in the clusters. Okay. The ACR support, Azure Container Registry support. Azure Defender helps in vulnerability management. As you might already know, Microsoft partnered with Qualys, who has been a market leader in vulnerability assessment and management space. And it comes as no surprise for you all that Microsoft as a company is committed to deliver best of breed solutions to our customers, so the partnership. So this architectural diagram explains about how it works in the backend. So say, for example, if there is when a new image is pushed, Azure Security Center scans the image using a scanner that is powered by Qualys. So what happens in the backend when it scans the image is the image will be pulled from the registry, and then it's then run in the isolated sandbox with Qualys scanner. That extracts the list of known vulnerabilities. And then Azure Security Center will filter and classifies the findings from the scanner. And in case if it finds any issues that are not recommended, then it triggers an actionable recommendations, and you will be notified in the Azure Security Center dashboard itself. So this is about container registries. I want to talk about Fusion a bit because this is another important topic. We call this as a cloud smart alert correlation in Security Center. I'm sure you all agree alert fatigue is real for any security analyst because security analysts face a huge burden of triage as they are, they have to go through the sea of alerts that is being displayed, and they have to correlate the alerts from different products manually. But Fusion Analytics is a technology that looks at different signals that's reported on the subscription across the resources, and it tries to find patterns, that reveal attack progression or signals with shared contextual information, and then it identifies them and it provides them more information about it in the dashboard. This is one of the alerts example that we are going to be talking about in the demo as well. Just to give more information on it. The Security Center also leverages Me3 attack matrix in order to associate alerts with their perceived intent, like in where exactly is that particular alert or is in the cyberkill chain process. And then and then you'll be able to see the alert in the dashboard. I'll show you a demo in a second about this. Before I speak about automated response, let me take you to the dashboard. So this is the Security Center overall dashboard. I'm going to navigate to security alerts. That's the focus of today's presentation. So you see the alerts here. The normal alert will have an icon of this type that will give you the alert information of what this alert is all about and the affected resource. And this is the Me3 attack matrix that I was talking about. This talks about at what stage your attacker is in the cyberkill chain. And it'll give you more information on the alert details and the related entities. We'll get to this in a second, but I want to show you how the Fusion Analytics display the alerts. So you see this little icon here. So this is one of the alert that's been generated by the Fusion technology. So I'm going to highlight on one of this alert security incident, and then when Tiander takes it over, he's going to talk about how to triage this alert and identify who actually has the access and more information. So, like you see the icon, this talks about the Fusion and the alert description and the affected resource. The alerts are categorized based on the severity and with the description and the count as well, like how many times this has been triggered and the activity start time as well. I could take action here, which will take me to the screen. This will give me more information about how to mitigate this alert. Right, it gives you more info. If I wanted to manually, resolve this alert, then I could use this information on how to, mitigate it. I do have an option to click on View All, which will show me all the 12 alerts from the previous screen. And now I want to be able to prevent future attacks for this particular affected resource. In those scenarios, this section is very useful. This talks about what are the recommendations that I have for this affected resource and the list of all the recommendations. I could click on View All 9 recommendations, which will take me to the recommendations section for this specific resource, and talks about what are the recommendations that are being fired for this resource with the past assessments and some unavailable assessments as well. Okay, so this is about the Fusion. So my next screen was about to discuss about the automated response. So I have an option to trigger automated response right here. This is my personal favorite topic. You can automate as many steps of these procedures as you can on how to remediate this alert. And when an alert, so for example, if I have trigger logic cap, this will trigger the logic app for this specific incident. But in Security Center, we have workflow automation as well, where I can have logic apps by clicking on Add Workflow Automation. Okay, so I give the name of the workflow automation and I choose the subscription and enable a resource group. And then now I have an option how I can trigger these actions. Do I want to trigger it for the alerts or recommendations? And I could specify the alert name and choose what severity that I want to monitor for. And under the actions sections is where I would be choosing the logic app that I might have imported for this specific recommendation or alert. So what happens when I do that? So when Azure Security Center finds out an alert, say for example, I am targeting a brute force alert. So I want to know as soon as a brute force alert appears in my subscription for any of the resources, I want it to be automatically taken care of. So that's just an example that I'm giving. We have a GitHub repository, Azure Security Center GitHub repository that I want to show you. So this is a example automation that we have that will automatically take care of the brute force attack when an Azure Security Center triggers the attack. It goes ahead and creates a security rule in the NSG of the affected VM, and it will deny the inbound traffic from the IP address that's attached to the alert. Very useful, and it also drops you an email eventually, right, when it is fixed, so that you know what actually has happened. So this is the link to our GitHub repository. We have number of automations that you can use. It's being tested by several customers and internally as well, either for recommendations or alerts. Well, you can use that and benefit out of it, because at the end of the day, how fast you act upon the alert is important, right? You don't want it to be spread into your environment, and then you are in a stage of working for months, but how good it is taking care of it earlier, right? So that's what this is very helpful for. Now going back to this alert and the take action tab. So I want to highlight a bit about suppressing similar alerts. So this is a super useful feature. Say you've identified some false positive alerts, or say, for example, an alert is being triggered too often and it's not relevant for you. You have an option to suppress the alert. So if it is a single alert that you're referring to that you want to suppress, you can very well manually dismiss it very easily by going here to the Security Center dashboard under the security alerts. I do have an option to dismiss it if it is one-off alert, or if I want to take care of these kind of alerts for the future, then I would go ahead and create a new suppression rule where I have an option to choose into two options, either custom or all. Custom will give me more information about this number of alerts. It could be all, and I type in either the user account or the file or the IP where I want to filter. Okay, and define some rule details, like what is this rule name, state is enabled or not, and what is the reason of suppression. And this is a super useful thing, rule expiration. So it automatically removes the rule if, after this is expired. This duration is expired. And another amazing feature that we have is simulation. You can simulate and test your rule to see how it works, and then once you're satisfied with it, you can come here and apply the rule suppression. So cool stuff, right? So that's it I had to cover. Undertake action, trigger response, and suppress this alert. So at this moment, I want to pass over to my colleague, Tiander. He will show you further how you can triage this alert in Azure Sentinel and find out who actually is the user that's affected in the Azure Active Directory. Over to you, Tiander.
Thank you, Safina. That was a great presentation on Security Center. So let me go ahead and share my screen, and let me know if you guys can see it. Let me move this out of the way and go ahead and present. So this is a great session for us, specifically because we're showcasing the Better Together story. So Azure Security Center is an extreme valuable service and partner of Azure Sentinel, because they are doing the heavy lifting and all the intelligence stuff that Safina talked about, and we just take advantage of the great work that Security Center is doing and pull that information into Azure Sentinel. Before I dive in a little bit into some mechanics and show you how it is that we are integrating, I would love to show you what security Azure Sentinel is about. As you may know, it's our SIEM solution running in Azure, which takes benefits of all the stuff that you need to don't need to worry about, like what kind of infrastructure do I need? Do I have capacity enough? So we take care of all that worries. So it runs in Azure. We scale up, scale down our service as necessary. And this is an extremely good example of how valuable the community is. So folks on the call like yourselves who are contributing on GitHub, but also providing us feedback to all the preview programs. And all the security experts' knowledge, like Safina and Security Center, are backing up what it is that we do in Azure Sentinel. So what we do is we collect data from different data sources. So we have multiple data connectors that are capable of bringing native information into Azure Sentinel and surface that. So you would typically look at your SOC as a SOC analyst to incidents and alerts from the perspective of Azure Sentinel. So we will never replace our data connector partners like Security Center because we're not in that business, but we are in the business of security incident and information management capabilities, the SIM capability together with our SOAR capability. So you saw a little demonstration what Safina was doing with remediation and playbooks. And what we do is we make it visible. Then we do the detection based on the analytics rules that run on our platform. Data brought in by, for example, Security Center, and we'll provide you additional capability to do hunting, because Safina showed you a couple of alerts and nice diffusion technology. So that needs to be triaged because someone needs to determine, is this an incident or a specific suspicious behavior that we should be looking at and investigating, and maybe we need to take countermeasures, right? And this is where analytics, triaging, and hunting takes place. After you identified it, it is something that we need to raise a security incident for. Then you get into the investigation piece where finally an incident is raised. So I just want to make sure the difference between an alert is a kind of a notable event that is kind of suspicious, and then alert that gets finally translated into an incident, which will contain one or more alerts, so that we actually have a security incident that we need to investigate. And then we have our SOAR capability right here, which will then cover the automation piece. Like I could, for example, automatically, when I see enough evidence, the fusion technology that Security Center uses to fuse all those alerts together and determine, hey, this is really an incident, we could automatically respond to it by isolating that virtual machine, or by disabling the user in Azure Active Directory, or force a password reset, or send a MFA challenge, a multi-factor authentication challenge to that users, and so forth. So this is the options are endless, how we can automate against resources that we need to investigate. Now, the question that we're always getting is, what can I bring into Azure Sentinel? It's a fairly common question. So before I dive into showing you how we integrate and partner with Security Center, I wanted to show this drawing to you. And this might look a little bit complex, but I wanted to show you the different options, right? So imagine that I have one data center site, or whatever how you would call it. These are actually the components that bring in data into Azure Sentinel. This is the first part. Let me zoom in on this and show you what I mean. So Azure Security Center and also Azure Sentinel are taking advantage of the agent that brings us kind of similar kind of capability. We can monitor that agent on the box, so we can monitor Windows and Linux, and that will give us rich information. For example, what's the inventory on the machine? How many updates do I have open? What kind of critical are those? A specific collection of files that we're interested in. How's the performance doing? And that information gets directly sent over a secure channel protected by certificates to our service through your typical firewall. And then we have also kind of a syslog integration capabilities, like a syslog collector, which would collect syslog data or common event format Ceph over syslog. And that agent will do actually the same thing as these agents right here. It would capture that syslog or Ceph data, maybe from your appliances and the routers and firewalls, and send that over to our servers. And that could either be kind of an on-prem system, or it could be something that would live in Azure or in AWS or in Google Cloud. It doesn't matter, right? We install an agent on there, and we can monitor your systems. So this is the multi-cloud story that we support, the same as Azure Security Center for AWS, for example. And then we have customers who are using kind of Elastic or Kibana Logstash, which is part of the ELK, which we also support, right? So you can stand up a Logstash cluster or VM. And this is typically used when customers want to transform data and convert data. And then we have our vendors right here. So you can see our vendors also kind of the typical firewall routers, appliance vendors are working together with us on threat intelligence, but also on bringing in the data from their appliances. And then we have typically the section right here where Azure Sentinel is in the middle of all that. And obviously we can integrate with Azure natively because we're running on Azure, right? So that means that all the diagnostics information that typically comes from Azure resources can be brought in. You have your virtual machines in Azure, and we can have a REST API. So you can send all data through the REST API that comes in. Where it comes really kind of important and maybe also kind of useful for you in this call is that we have a number of data connectors right here. So these are just a sample of the data connectors that we bring out of the box, and obviously Security Center is one of them. And next to that, we are integrating with Logic Apps for our kind of SOAR capabilities, but also being able to send data from AWS or the Google Cloud or any connection that we can create, typically over an API, and get that into Sentinel. So this is typically the story how we get that and build an architecture, and then you have obviously your custom application if you want to integrate with that. So this is a little introduction and foundation of Azure Sentinel. And what I would love to do is take it from where Safina was ending her presentation on the alerts that surfaced in Azure Security Center, and let's see how Azure Sentinel is coping with that. So what I wanted to do is show you Azure Sentinel. So when you are using Azure Sentinel, this is familiar to you, and you can see here the number of events that we are getting into Sentinel, number of alerts. You can see the recent incidents. We show a map and all kinds of information at a glance. I talked about the data connectors, right? And you can see here that we got currently 61 connectors. We're expanding all the time. And you can see that those are not only kind of Microsoft connectors, but also through other vendor connectors. So you can see here, we've got Barracuda, we got Checkpoint, we got Cisco, we got Citrix, CyberArk. All those partners that we are working in are capable of bringing in those events. And this is typically how you would connect Azure Sentinel with different vendors, different data sources, and obviously you can also deploy the agent. Now, as promised, we wanted to take a look at how the Security Center. So if I would look for Security Center, you can see here that we have Security Center and also the IoT preview. If I click on this, I can open the connector page and I can enable this for multiple subscriptions. So I can connect, disconnect, and then I can connect it to my Sentinel instance. You do need specific requirements per permissions to make sure that we respect your role-based access control model. So let's pivot over to my workspace where I have configured Azure Security Center alerts coming in. Now you can see that this is kind of reflecting what Safina was showing in Security Center. So you can see all the incidents, all the alerts that ASC Security Center was showing are now showing up in Sentinel. And notice that I filtered on the product name. So I can go ahead and click here and I can filter on different data sources. And this is the great thing about Azure Sentinel. We give you an holistic view of all the data sources coming in, and I can slice and dice how I would like to see that information. Now, there are multiple options for a SOC analyst to look at incidents in Azure Sentinel. So the incidents view is just one capability, right? But we also have workbooks. So you can see this is the workbook section here, where I'm leveraging and partnering with Azure Monitor to showcase how I could visualize data. So you could delegate a workbook instead of this view, and you would typically see kind of incidents from multiple workspaces. So if you are a customer using multiple workspaces, this is typically what you could use. I could use a workbook here. And what I typically can do is I have the great world map again, but I can see what kind of tactics are being used in here. And I can collapse what kind of incidents are coming in here. So these are all the incidents. You can see here the severities. You can see here the title, the product name. So Security Center is also in here, suspicious activity detected. And I can see all kinds of more information, like what's the severity, what's the status, what's the alert count if I have a huge count. So I can filter, slice and dice in here. And I can also look for specific entities. So if I want to look for, I just looked at the ASC alert, and I was a little bit concerned about a user that I saw, not me, but a user called Obi. And I did see that we have kind of alerts from that specific user. Now, how would you do that specifically in Azure Sentinel, right? So you will have the alerts here. Now I can search for titles. I can filter by product name, but I just wanted to focus on a specific incident that ASC has raised. Which was, if I look at the list, what would, for me, the first kind of incident that I wanted to look at. Now, I'm always interested in suspicious processes, right? So if a process which is suspicious identified by Security Center, that would be interesting. Now, what we're showing on this page is a couple of interesting things, right? So first of all, we will always try to show you the link back to the source. So if you need to do investigations in the source, you could click on this link, and this would bring you back to Security Center to investigate. But what is also interesting here is that we are displaying the entities, meaning what kind of entities are related to this specific alert. I can see here a couple of user accounts, too, of the same name. I can see a server here, and I can see an entity, which is my cmd.exe, which I probably want to investigate. Also, the alignment with the micro tactics are here, so we identify that. And you can see here that you can have a specific workbook, which I just showed you to explore it in a kind of more visual way. Now, let's assume that I want to kind of investigate, right? I need to determine whether this is an incident that I need to worry about. Well, I'm already worried, but I need to kind of pivot and drill down a little bit more. I could then click on view full details because I want to investigate this a little bit further. Now, there are a couple of things that you've already seen, right? The entities here, the evidence, I have the analytics rules, but on the top here, I can see the alert. So this is the original alert that got fired, but I can also see the entities right here. And I can see the related entities. And what is obviously very concerning here is that I can now see kind of an hashing password dumping tool, which is not something I would like to see in my environment, right? So this triggers a kind of a internal bell. And now as a SOC analyst, I'm not more worried than before, because if someone was able to execute this, and by the way, I have no idea how this got to that box. So this required some more information. Now I can investigate the entities right here. So you can see this is my Azure Active Directory user. This is probably a local account. So the first thing I want to do is look at my account, whether that account got compromised or what was happening with it. So I need to have more information. And there's where the entities kind of here on the left-hand side kind of is going to play an important role. So if I click on the entities, now I'm getting the interaction with user entity behavior analytics, and I'm getting more information about the user, because I need to determine what has happened to that user. So I can see quickly who is it, which building is he or she in. And I can see that here, if I look at the overview, a couple of things have happened, right? I can see alerts, office activity, and now I can see also a timeline. So if you're using Windows Defender ATP, this looks familiar. I can see what kind of activities have been going on. And this is the suspicious kind of activity, what I determined, and I can go ahead and take a look at these. The same thing for my Windows server here, because that was probably where it all started. I can click on it, and I can see here what kind of server is it? Is it the Linux or is it the Windows? I can see logged IP addresses, so I can do investigation on these IP addresses. And here's the integration with Security Center. So I can see all the alerts, I can see the recommendations, and as you can see, these are all drill down capable. If I click on this, this would guide me to Azure Security Center to immediately look at the incidents, look at the remediation recommendations, and also you can see that Defender for Endpoint has raised a couple of alerts. So this is not the greatest thing I would like to see based on this kind of server, because I can see here a timeline again. And also I can see here insights. So Azure Sentinel provides you insight on what kind of typical abnormal stuff do I see. Signs in over time. I can see a real peak here. This is not great. And I can see all kind of interesting stuff, processes being executed. I can see rare processes. So this is what user entity behavior analytics is doing for me. And I can pivot to each and every kind of action that I'm seeing here. But this is just for me to collect enough evidence. Well, by now I have enough evidence to show that this is something I need to be looking at. I can see event logs cleared on that host, that typical sign of something. But I can see, for example, here my timeline. Account added to a privileged group. That's not what I want to see. All kinds of stuff. And I can see that the offending account is actually Obi. This continues to be kind of a suspect. So if I go back to the incident here, and I go one more time back to this account, I want to have more information on specifics, right? Because I just saw at a glance that AMCAS, Cloud App Security, raised kind of information on impossible travel. So this is more and more building the evidence. And when I see a Tor activity that is concerning. Now, if I want to have more information, there are multiple ways depending on how I'm using a SIM tool and what kind of SOC analyst am I to pivot to more information, right? Now, the beauty is I can double click or click and look at these information. For example, impossible travel. If I click on this, I will be routed to search. So this will give me kind of more information on what it is that that AMCAS has shown me. So I can have a specific time range here. Let's look back for the last 7 days and run this. and I can see an impossible travel activity. Now, if I want to have more information, I can collapse it and I can look for information. Now, this specific user was flagged as an impossible travel because this user was traveling with light speed within 50 minutes to the US and also logging in from France, which is two different IP addresses that are not sounding familiar, right? So that is another kind of proof point that I have. Now going back here, I can also look whether the person did do some damage. I'm concerned about DLP, right? So what I also want to look and glance for, is there anything, and I can see file download from a risky IP. So that's not doing well, or any file sharing that I can see here, anonymous IP address downloaded from SharePoint. This is not what I typically want to see, but I can, as mentioned, I can do in another investigation. For example, if I look at the file downloaded from a risky IP, let's take a look at this, what kind of information I have. And this is now showing something got downloaded, not sure what it is. And I can look for information. So this is showing some kind of inside information. So I can look for kind of more information that I'm interested in. So because I want to have a more kind of evidence, I can look at what did MCAS give me here. So I can see that something got downloaded from the OneDrive for Business. So that's not going to land well with our leadership team. Now from here on, I can also kind of do free-form searches, right? So if I want to kind of search a kind of a security event, I can type in here something else. I can look for security events where the offending computer and my offending user account has been potentially executing some suspicious processes. So if I run this, I can see all kinds of stuff on what has been executed on these machines. So I can see a lot of Chrome and Edge, but I can see typical attacks here. So who am I? System info. I'm killing a process here. I'm disabling the firewall here. So I have enough information and evidence that this has been a very concerning incident that I need to check. So if I go back to here and go back to the incidents, let's go back here. What I want to do is a couple of things. I can look at my playbooks because I can run automatic remediations, automation automatically, but I am the tier 1 SOC analyst. So I want to click on playbooks. And what I want to do is I want to create a ServiceNow ticket, because we need to escalate this to a higher tier. So I can run this, it will run this, but I also want to make sure that I'm confirming this user, this is Obi, as a risky user, and I can potentially force this user, I can block this user, but if it is a VIP, which it probably is, I don't want to be getting upset emails. So I also want to run confirm a risky Azure AD user. So now in the backend, it has been flagged as risky, and I can do additional stuff, investigations. I can run a virus total check and stuff like that. So that all can be ran automatically. So if you look at the runs and I do a refresh, you can see that those playbooks, I need to investigate what has happened here, but I can run automation in the backend, so it will be automatically executed. We got a couple of minutes left for questions, so I want to make sure that I'm respectful of the time. So I will give it back to Velen. And thanks everyone for watching this presentation together with me and Safina. It was a great experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Tiander and Safina. We did have lots of questions coming in, and the team did a great job responding to them. I did notice a few pricing related questions And I think we did provide answers on some of them, but for pricing details, I think we already posted a link there. If you don't mind using that link, that would be great. That's gonna be the, let me see here. Yes, it's the azure.microsoft.com/en-us/pricing/details. And if you go to where the details end, then you'll have a breakdown of all of the security products in case you have questions for the other related security products. So we're getting to the top of the hours, and I see folks are dropping. And just a few reminder before ending the call that we are hosting a few more webinars this week, and we have also lined up for the next year. And for details, please visit our landing page at aka.ms/security-webinars. In case we missed to answer your question, or if you have additional questions post this webinar, you can visit us on our Azure Security Center forum at aka.ms/ASC community, and feel free to raise Sentinel questions there too, and then we'll divert them to the right teams. I would like to close this webinar by thanking both Safina and Tiander for an excellent Better Together webinar. And thank you to the rest of the team who helped answering the questions. And most of all, I want to thank all of you for your continued support and for being part of our community and for joining webinars like this. We hope to see you next time. Goodbye.